And I would recommend this degree to a certain type of person. You could be in medical sales as a pharmacist, you can work for the government in policy, you can work in a hospital, you can. It's such a slap in the face to their 5 years of training to be so devalued and say like, no, I'm not going to be a Tesco's pharmacist, because it's like, but what is wrong with being a pharmacist at Tesco? There's nothing. Those people, you get the maths, you get the biology, and you get the chemistry. Unfortunately, you get the chemistry. No guys, genuinely, Pharm Chem, and I could go on and on and on about the benefits of pharmacy, but it's like, you're gonna have to see for yourself. Hi guys, welcome to my Real Astronaut Academia channel. My name is Agapé, like the love. If you're new here, then hi, welcome. This is a safe space, but if you're not, welcome back to my channel. As you guys can tell by the title of this video, I'm going to be delving into all things pharmacy related, whether I regret the course that I'm doing, whether I would recommend it to anybody, and just the pros and cons and what it's like studying a Master's of Pharmacy degree in the UK. And yeah, let's get into the video. We're going to delve deeper into that, the pros and cons of doing pharmacy, and if I would actually recommend doing it. Okay, party people, I'm going to be starting with the negatives. I feel like we start negative, then we go into positive, then I just rant. But no, we're going to be talking about the cons of pharmacy and what I've sort of like figured all these things out as I've gone along, and what I think are like, yeah, this is not so great, right? One of the cons of studying and doing a pharmacy degree, right, and becoming a pharmacist towards the end of it, is this is like the biggest one. I think if this thing didn't exist, I don't know if pharmacy students would be feeling the way that they feel when they study the course that they study, right? Is the aspect of respect. And it's the aspect of the fact that our degree is so, it's undervalued, it's underappreciated, but it's so misunderstood that as a pharmacy student, you often feel like you have to like explain to people why you study the degree you study in a level that, and you start the conversation off and they already feel bad, and not in a oh, I'm so proud of you feel bad. They're like, do you really want to do this? And I think that's the common thread throughout like year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, when I speak to third and fourth year students, and I speak to foundation year pharmacists, right, is the level of respect that is missing. And this can be because of a multitude of reasons, right? And I think one of the main things is that because of how misunderstood, as I said, the degree is. So when people think of pharmacists, they think of somebody at Tesco, or the Tesco, or like, I'm saying Tesco in the UK, or Walgreens, or that's in America, or Clicks in South Africa. I'm trying to think of like big retail places, right? They think of somebody there, right? And so they think that, number one, that's the only thing a pharmacist does. But that's a problem for multiple, like, that's a problem for many, many reasons, right? Number one, because it devalues the people who end up doing that specific thing, right? And I've learned this the hard way, because whenever I tell people I do pharmacy, and then they're like, oh, okay, so you're going to work at Tesco or whatever, my immediate reaction is always to be like, no, I'm not going to work at Tesco, I'm going to work in a hospital. As a hospital pharmacist, like, you know, when you go into the hospital, they have to give you medication. Like, I say that, and I recently caught myself saying this to somebody who studied dentistry, and it was funny because I was like, wait, you do understand that we are in very similar fields, like we're in the field of medicine, like regardless of what you do, we're going to be handling medicines. And even as someone who I was speaking to, even though they were studying dentistry, the understanding of what a pharmacist was so minute, and whether that is on the them not doing MDT projects, or them not understanding the different roles of different healthcare professionals. Like, I was just talking to them, but that was so reflective of the general public. And I think that's why it was so upsetting, because, as I said, number one, we devalue the people who are doing those roles by trying to over compromise and just go above and beyond to try and say like, no, I'm not going to be a Tesco's pharmacist, because it's like, but what is wrong with being a pharmacist at Tesco? There's nothing. Those people, they save lives every day. They're checking medications. They do so much behind the desk. There's so much clinical knowledge that goes into every single sign off and every single decision that they make, that it's such a slap in the face to their 5 years of training, to be so devalued. And so like, number one, so I'm not going to be a pharmacist at a community pharmacist, because I just feel like I want to work in a hospital setting. But the thing is, all the clinical knowledge that they use in the hospital setting, you learn a lot of that like in your inform degree. So the people who work in industry and the people who work in education and the people who work in policy and the people who work like, so policy slash like the government, and the people who work in hospitals or in the GPs or in Tesco, they all start off with that inform degree. And it's such a like a sad thing or a detriment where you're trying to explain to people like, value me, yes, I studied for 5 years and this is intense stuff that I'm doing, when people just don't understand. And so I feel like the general public I can understand, but when it came from somebody who was also doing a healthcare degree, and I'm like, what? Like, I get like your local person down the street who might not have a tertiary education, like I get their understanding, but for you to be in uni studying a medical degree and still asking me, oh, but so what can pharmacists do? And I'm like, really? Like, huh? I have to do MDT projects where I learn about what nurses and dentists and physiotherapists and all of those people do, but the same can't be reciprocated. So it just feels really weird. So yeah, I value the pharmacists who work at Tesco's, because they do so much that we don't even know, that we don't even see. And yeah, all of the decision-making skills save people's lives, the accuracy checking that they do, like a lot of the things that you don't see behind the desk, they're using their expertise that they've studied for 5 years trying to master and just get to a T, right? It's such a slap in the face. So I think the first one would be like respect, but not only from like the general public, but also from people in the healthcare sector. I feel like that's one of the big cons. And I was wondering, in America, pharmacists are doctors. They do a PharmD, but in America, studying pharmacy or medicine or dentistry, they're all on like the same playing field, because they all do an undergrad in like a pre-med undergrad, so like a biology or chemistry or something like that, and then they go off into like nursing school or medical school or pharmacy school or like dentistry, right? And by the time they finish, it's not the same with nurses, but by the time they finish, doctors, pharmacists and dentists are all doctors something. It might be a PharmD or MD, right? Medical degree or pharmacy degree, right? They all become a doctor. And I always wanted to know if that was the same in the UK, how would pharmacists be treated? But it's such a weird thing to think that like their treatment could be different because of 2 letters before their name. That is a very weird thing. But yeah, I was just thinking about that. But anyway, the first one would be respect. The second one about like the pharmacy cons of pharmacy is the time in which it takes for you to become a pharmacist. It's 5 long years. It's not 1, it's not 2, it's not 3, it's not even 4, because you have to do your pre-reg exam and pass it. And it takes 5 years. I'm just saying hi to one of my friends. It takes 5 years in order for you to become a pharmacist, and that's a lot of time that you could be doing other things, right? 5 years is a chunk. Like, that's a toddler, a baby becoming like a whole human being, and more. It's a long time to give up, right? So time wise, you really are dedicating such a chunk of your time to do something, and a lot of people might not like that. And if you repeat a year, because people do, it just takes you even longer. But also because of the GPHC guidelines, from the time you start your degree to by the time you've write that exam, you need to do it in 7 years. So if you're doing a repeat or if you're doing a placement year, it just cuts your time less and less for you to be able to do the pharmacy exam. So yeah, that's another thing to think about. My third thing to think about, it's funny because it can go both ways, right? Your pay can either be really good or really bad, depending on sector, depending on experience, depending on, like, sector is so specific, but also like the trajectory and how things are going, and also because of the NHS. But I love the NHS. However, as somebody who, if you study in the UK and you work in the UK, don't compare your salary to somebody who works in America or Canada, because there's going to be a lot less zeros, and you have to be prepared for that outcome. But those are like 3 of the main things as to why, like, people should know, like, if you want to study pharmacy, on top of the fact that it's such a grueling degree. Like, that would be my 4th and, like, final point, because it's such an obvious point, but I also think people don't realize how intense pharmacy is. I was on one of my friends, she messaged me, and she studies medicine, and she was like, Agape, wait, I just started the pharmacology, like, aspect of this, and, like, how do I learn these drugs? And I'm like, yeah, how do you? And she's like, all the side effects and the interactions and the this and the, and I'm like, yes, how do you? That is the question that I think even pharmacy students want to know. I think people think that it's an easy route in without realizing that you are a medical professional, you are a specialist in drugs. There's a reason why there's pharmacists in every single ward. There's a reason why junior doctors come to pharmacists asking them, like, can I prescribe this? Is this okay? What about this interaction? What about this? What about this? There's something about being a specialist in your field, a specialist in drugs, and also being able to specialize further on, that is very important. And I think people think that, okay, I didn't get the grades to do this certain thing, and I'm not going to say what it is, but you guys know, then okay, I'm just going to go do another thing, and then they find themselves really struggling with the workload because they forget that this is not fun and games. It's really not. It's really not. I'm thinking about the work that I had this week, and it's not fun and games. As I said, it's a lot to know, a lot to just memorize, a lot to know at the top of your head, and yeah, those will be some of the reasons as to why people might not want to study or become pharmacists. However, there's always goodness on the other side. There's always a bright side to things, and that's going to be my pros. Wait, let me just drink some water. Pros. The pros of pharmacy. As I go through this course, I fall more in love with it, and it's such a cliche thing to say, but I'm so happy and adamant with I'm so adamant that I chose what I did, and I'm so happy with the decision that is only by God, because of so many different reasons. And number one is going to be flexibility slash the you know what, I'm just gonna say flexibility. And flexibility can mean a whole bunch of different things, right? It can mean flexibility in time, whether you want to be a community pharmacist, right, and being able to have your 9 to 5, and so if you want to have a family and you want to prioritize that, you're still working in the medical field, you're still doing something that's super important, you're saving lives, you know, but you can still prioritize having time for a family, being able to be present in your home, and that's something that I think is so important and so cool. As I like step into adulthood and start thinking about all of those things, I think it's so cool that we can still have those things while still being passionate about the degree that we do. Number 2 would be the wide career options, and this is also why I have this little thing over here, of like, it says many faces of a pharmacist. I don't know if you guys can read, but it says manufacturing, academic, research, community, hospital, marketing, regulations. So in each one it says, it says manufacturing, your gatekeeper; academic, your drug discoverer; research, your clinical researcher; community, your partner in healthcare; hospital, your patient care team player; marketing, your medication distributor; regulations, your law enforcer. So that's more like policy stuff. And I think what people don't realize is all the faces of a pharmacist and all the different things that you can go into. So number one, bringing it back to the Tesco thing, it would be like a harmful thing to say, because like obviously they don't all work in Tesco. And number two, it's so sad that you think that that's all they do, because you could be in a tech company as a pharmacist, you could be in medical sales as a pharmacist, you can work for the government in policy, you can work in a hospital, you can be one of the head pharmacists up, you can be a antimicrobial specialist, you can be a pediatric specialist pharmacist working in a hospital. You can do so many different things with your degree because of the fact that you're a specialist in drugs. And thinking about how much the world is changing and how much tech is such a part of our day-to-day lives, tech companies and companies that want to go into further drug development and industrial world, and whether that be working with vaccines, whether that be working with just new technologies, right, are going to need drug specialists on their teams. And I think that's something that once I started studying pharmacy, every day I'm so shocked. There's people who work in consultancy, there's people who work in so many fields and faculties that you didn't think oh, okay, they started off with an informed degree, they started off studying pharmacy, and this is how they were able to go from A to B, from B to C, from C to XYZ, you know. It surprises me every day. And I also think about the fact that there's so many pharmacy degrees that in 10 years time are going to exist, and right now they don't. And you can go from one place to the next, to the next, to the next, all because you studied a 4-year degree program at a university and you did your registration exam. So all because you dedicated those 5 years, your world can be so it's so expansive. I think that's my favorite thing personally about doing pharmacy, is just that you aren't trapped into doing one thing. You can be an independent prescriber, which I'm gonna be when I graduate, which I'm so excited about, and you can work in a GP. You could work in a community pharmacist, and instead of being referred to a GP to die for whatever, you could be the one who gives the diagnosis, which is also really cool. But also you have to take that with a lot of grain of salt and all the responsibilities and risks that comes with that, obviously, right? With great power comes great being sued. Yeah, with great power comes great responsibility. So you would have to know that you're on top of your A game and know that you are prescribing within your competency, obviously. But that's the one that I think is so cool. You can you can be the founder of so many different companies, because so many people are going to need those expertise and those skills that you have and the networking that you have. That is my favorite one. Another reason as to why I think pharmacy is such a good degree is because you get to mix all the things that are super important. So for me, my favorite subjects, or the subjects that I did at A-levels, were biology, chemistry and maths, and pharmacy is I think the best combination of all three of those. I say that because if you think of a medical degree, they don't do chemistry the way that we do. If you think of a pharmacology degree, they don't do the people skills the way that we do. It's the right mix of the two worlds, right? Where you have your patient contact, that's why we got placements for weeks and weeks on end, and you have the biology sense, because in order to know in order to give drugs to patients, you need to know the drug composition, the formulation of them, but you also need to know how to make certain things, and how they also affect the body, but not only the body, how they affect other drugs that are taken alongside them, or if you have any previous prior medical conditions or any other health things that could be going on in your body, you need to know. And then also to make sure that patients aren't being overdosed. aren't being overprescribed. Like, to make sure the patients don't overdose, you need to have the math skills. So it's such a good combination of all three of them, where you aren't neglecting the other and you get the patient interaction. So you get the people skills, you get the maths, you get the biology, and you get the chemistry. Unfortunately, you get the chemistry. No guys, genuinely, Pharm Chem, that's what I'm saying, it's but no, I think that's why I love the three of them, is because it's such a good blend of all three. Like, tell me a degree that has all three of them in its like balance, the way it's balanced like that. I can't tell you, because not even nursing has the chemistry side that we do. They have the people side, they have the biology side, they do have some maths calculations, but they don't do organic chemistry like we do. Maybe that's a blessing, maybe we should do nursing. No, but that's also one of my points. And you know what, my fourth point is that it's actually interesting. Like, we were in a lecture this week, we were doing like determinants of health, but I genuinely going to the lectures, and then also the day before that we were in this neuroscience lecture, and like, you know, when you have a lecture who's actually like super engaging and super like, you just, you know, you want to learn more. Most of the time, I was gonna say always, but most of the time I leave my lectures being like, whoa, that's super insightful, that's very interesting, I wonder how I'm gonna be able to connect that to my degree. So we'll be learning something in neuroscience, and then they add the clinical implications of that, and you see how it affects, like, just learning about like neuronal activity, and then learning about dementia or like schizophrenia, and learning about how it relates to your axons and just brain activities. And I think that is so interesting. Like, you leave the course actually being like, you know what, I gained so much from this. And I could go on and on and on about the benefits of pharmacy, but it's like, you're gonna have to see for yourself if you really like this. I know people genuinely, they really did struggle with the degree and are still struggling, but I feel like you get so much out of it, like how much you put in. It's super intense, and I wouldn't tell anybody to do a pharmacy degree like oh, just do it. It's a lot of hard work, but if you're up for the challenge, I feel like that would have been such a nice way to end my video, because I have another segment called Would I Recommend This Degree? And I would recommend this degree to a certain type of person. If you're ready to work hard, if you're ready to go all in. You know what, some people got through pharmacy by barely just scraping it, right? However, by the time you do your foundation, your training, then you actually have to do your GPHC exam. I don't know how you're just going to be able to scrape through, because you're actually going to need to know and do your stuff. And I think you can only have 3 attempts, and if you fail it all 3 attempts, then you can't register to be a pharmacist. So that's really unfortunate. But if you're willing to give it a go and give it a fair chance, but also recognize that this is a lot of hard work, right? Then I would definitely recommend the degree to you. If you're someone who's super lazy, then I don't know if it's for you, because first year I could see people scrape through and pass, but second year, even in second year, there's a lot of people who are very unfamiliar to me in my cohort now, and that's because they had to repeat a year, and in third year again, and in fourth year again. It's a lot of giving it your all, you know. And so for those reasons, I definitely would recommend the degree. I think it's such a cool one to have under your belt. Again, you can go off and do so many different things, specialize, whatever, do your PhD, become a doctor if you want to. But yeah, no, I love this degree, and I would recommend it 100 times over. Let me know what you guys think. I would be super interested to hear what your thoughts are on pharmacy, whether you study in the UK, whether you study in America, whether you study in South Africa, Australia, Canada, whatever. Let me know. I'm keen to hear your thoughts, what's in your brain. But no, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. I hope that it was insightful. And I shall see you guys in my next video. If it's the next pharmacy one that you end up clicking on, then see you then. But if it's not, and it's just another fun video that isn't pharmacy related, because even the pharmacy ones are fun, not too much on me, then I'll see you then as well. But in the meantime, take care.